All right, we're going to pick up in 15:1, but let's just kind of set the stage a little bit. So we're starting our kind of second round of shaping Avram. This is going to be the round where Avram gets renamed to Avraham. These three chapters, 15, 16, 17, have been very well divided by the 16th century people that divided the Bible into chapters. And so the chapters really work this time, which is nice. And so 15 and 17 are the outsides of this chiastic structure. And then 16 is in the middle. And so both 15 and 17 are just full-on conversations between Yahweh and Avram, and then Avram's going to get renamed Avraham. And there'll be a lot of interesting things that happens in those. And then 16 is in the middle, right? So whatever happens in 16 is obviously pretty important, right? It also turns out that if you were to think about this earlier structure, it was also chiastically centered. Interestingly enough, it was chiastically centered around Egypt. And so it was centered around this choice that Abram made to tell a lie, this choice to take the fruit. And so we're going to very much see this theme of there will be a fruit that will be taken again. In chapter 12, the fruit was Sarai, who was taken, and it was taken by the Egyptians, who admittedly didn't know at the time. And then Avram played the role of the snake. And so we're going to see some more tree moments in this, and that's going to happen in the middle of 16. It's also interesting that this previous chunk, it was kind of like a Lot sandwich around Egypt. So there was Lot in the beginning where he came, and then Lot honestly just disappears in the story in Egypt. But then he shows up after. So it's kind of like a Lot sandwich with Egypt in the middle. It turns out that structure is also the macro structure of this area. So this first third had Lot in it quite a bit, other than that one little Egypt chunk. And then the final story is going to be all about Lot as well. So there's going to be a lot about Lot in this final chunk as well. And then the middle, which is kind of like the Egypt middle, Lot won't be in at all. So it'd be, some of us are happy about this. But everything we read in 15, 16, 7, it's going to kind of represent like an Egypt story, a taking of the fruit story. So this big macro structure, but it won't involve Lot. But don't worry, Lot's coming right back. And so you could read from chapter 14, you could finish that, and you could jump straight to 18, and you would see how that would actually flow much more naturally. But the way the author choose to chunk these and put them is with this chunk in the middle. So there's three things where the middle is very important, and then this middle is of course three things very clearly, and the center is the most important, and then the center of this is going to be Sarai taking Hagar the Egyptian and giving to Abram, and then he ate, right? So he went into her and she became pregnant is the problem here. And so we're going to see kind of the before message with Avram and God, and then the after message. And God almost yells at him, walk before me and be blameless, for goodness sakes, right? Like that's what's going to happen. But it's also interesting that Yahweh is not going to give up on this guy, even after doing something pretty terrible. So, all right, let's read. I think we set the stage. I will mainly just be reading from these now. All right, so verse 1 of chapter 15. After these things, the word of Yahweh was to Abram in a vision, saying, don't be afraid, Abram. I am a delivering shield for you. Your reward is great, very much. And by the way, this does flow naturally with what we just finished doing. So what we just finished doing is he stole a bunch of loot from Kedlaomer, so this alliance of Mesopotamian kings, right? So you actually might be a little worried about repercussions after messing with a bunch of Mesopotamian kings. But Yahweh says, I am a delivering shield for you. And interestingly enough, we never hear about those four again. They're just gone. That's kind of cool. And Abram said, Master Yahweh, what will you give me? Now I'm going on naked. It's so interesting. The Hebrew gives the ability with words to make connections that we just can't do in English, right? So if we were to say I'm going on naked, we wouldn't even know what that meant. It was an expression, a euphemism, an idiom that meant that he had no children, right? So in English, we just translate it, I don't have any children. But what he actually said is I'm naked, right? Which is kind of fun. And so I'm naked, and a son of Meshech of my house, this is Damascus, and that actually says that in the text, is Eleazar. Eleazar is this word which has a numerical value of 318, right? So this is how the connection got made, and it's a very significant word. It means El, which represents God in names, so Elohim, El, and then Azar. So Azar is that delivering help. So God made an Azar. That was the woman in the garden, right? And so El-Azar is a very significant Bible name. Eleazar is the Hebrew version. The Greek version is Lazarus. And so anytime you see the name Eleazar in the Old Testament and you see stories about Lazarus in the New Testament, same name. And we could talk about how that happened. But there will be quite a few stories, especially in John with the raising of Lazarus and also the parable of the rich man and Lazarus, where it is the same name. So it's kind of interesting there. And so Abram said, "Look at me. You've given me no seed, no Zair. And so look, a son of my house will inherit me." And so Eleazar is going to inherit Abram. And I'm sure he's a very nice man, right? He's only mentioned here, but there will be a story that's coming after the test when they go get a wife for Isaac, Rivkah, where they will send a head servant who it doesn't name, but it probably is Eleazar, right? So probably a pretty good guy, but not actually his seed, right? And so what is Yahweh to respond to this doubt? He says, "And look, the word of Yahweh was to Abram, saying, this one will not inherit you, rather one who comes from your innards, that one will inherit you." And he brought him outside, and he said, by the way, there's two very famous statements that are made in the same chapter about the number of descendants being like the dust of the land. The dust of the land was in chapter 13. And then here's the stars in the sky. So it's just kind of really neat. "Stare, please, at the skies and count the stars if you're able to count them." And he said to him, "Such will be your seed." By the way, the number of stars, it's like a number with 23 zeros or something that we know about, and it could be infinite beyond that, right? So big number. And he trusted Yahweh. This is probably the most famous verse about Avram. But you can see that it's trust in Yahweh that's significant. And it was attributed to him as right relationship. This is that word tzedakah. So he was righteous, right? So it's kind of neat. So pretty cool. So he trusted that Yahweh would in fact provide him with children. You would think that the story would be over, but it's not. And he said to him, "I am Yahweh who brought you out from the oven, Ur of Kasdim, to give you this land to inherit." And he said to him, "Master Yahweh, with what can I know that I will inherit it?" So once kind of a pledge or a down payment. This will come back up when we talk about the Holy Spirit being a pledge or a down payment. It also come back up humorously in the story of Judah when we're reading about Joseph, where he gives a pledge to Tamar. These things are strangely connected, right? And so how can you know what pledge will you give me, basically? And so Yahweh does it, right? And so Yahweh, knows Abram. He knows the culture and the customs, and they go through a covenant-making ceremony. Just to give us a little cultural context here, Jeremiah will explain this. What they would do is the two parties would take animal sacrifices, cut them in two to kind of make like a bloody aisleway. And then the two parties who are making a covenant would walk down the aisle together. And the analogy was, if I were to break my covenant, may my fate be like these animals, right? So what we're kind of expecting here is for them to make a bloody aisleway of sacrifices, and then for Yahweh and Abram to walk down the aisle together. And if they break the covenant, may their fate be like the animals. That is not what happens, interestingly enough. And so he said to him, "Take for me a 3-year-old calf, a 3-year-old goat, a 3-year-old ram, and a dove and a pigeon." So all good sacrificing things, and I'm sure the numbers are wildly significant, but I don't actually get them all. And he took for himself all of these, and he have them, which is to have something is similar to the word for covenant. Covenant's like barit, and this is a similar word, but it's just slightly different. So it's connected to the covenant, and there's 3 times it's listed. All these things so significant, right? But I don't get all the details. So he have them in the middle, and he set each half met its neighbor, and the birds, however, he did not cut in half. So that's why you kind of needed 2 of them. So you can kind of imagine the scene here. There's now 6 pieces of calf, 6 pieces of goat, 6 pieces of ram, but then the dove and the pigeon are on each side. So I think we've got 10 on each side, right? It's kind of the idea, because the birds were not halved. So you've got like your 10 and my 10, and we're going to walk down the aisle. And then this is an interesting little why on earth did it say this? The birds of prey came down on the corpses, and Abraham blew at them. Gotta love the Bible. But blue represents wind or breath. And so this is actually a melody is what we've got here. And so in the same way, we'll come back to this, in the same way that in 8:1, Elohim caused a wind to cover the land. And in the same way in 1 chapter 1, verse 2, we have the breath of Elohim. So here we have Abraham blowing away the chaos. And so he blew at the birds. So yeah, it's really fun that they include things like that to make these themes. Anyway, as the sun was going down, this is supposed to also make you think of it was evening and it was morning, right? As the sun was going down, we assume that they're about to walk down the aisle. Then a deep stupor sleep fell on Abram. And look, a terror, a darkness, a great one fell upon him. And so Abram gets knocked unconscious by God, right? And so he's out cold, kind of the same way that Adam was knocked out cold whenever God took the rib from him. So God is going to do something here, right? And so he's in this very deep sleep. And he said to Abram, and whether this is like literally you could record it with a video camera, or whether this is part of his vision, it's hard to say. You must know that your seed will be immigrants in a land not their own, and they will serve them. Most people take this to mean Yahweh is telling him that the exodus to Egypt is going to happen. Whether it's also telling him about the future exile to Babylon, or whether it's bigger picture of like our exile in the world, hard to say. But most people take it as like the short term of talking about Egypt. They'll be there for 400 years, right? They will oppress them for 400 years. So it seems pretty clear that he's talking about the Egypt one. But 4 also represents a time of testing, right? And also that nation which they serve, presumably the Egyptians here, I will judge them, and after that they will go out with great possessions. And so the people who held these scriptures and these promises of God, they saw this very clearly. So when they leave Egypt, they get loot from the Egyptians, right? They give them jewels and jewelry and things like that, right? And so people see this connection as a promise from God that's being fulfilled there. And as for you, so you specifically, you, Abram, you will go to your fathers in completeness. So he will be like a mature, it's like a stone without blemish. Telios would be the Greek word. Tanamim is probably the word here. I'd have to look it up to see which version of completeness they used. And he will be buried at a good old age. He's going to make it to 175. So he was called out of Ur at 75, and he's going to make it to 175. So he's going to have 100 years with Yahweh. And then we kind of go back to the bigger picture, the Exodus. The 4th generation will return here. So when am I going to bring them out of Egypt? Because the crookedness of the Amorite isn't complete onto here. So God has reasons for his timing, right? It's really what it comes down to. And he's got a little bit of insight here that they're going to be in Egypt a little while longer until the bigger picture timing is right. He's going to choose to bring judgment on the Amorite. And that word is one word, but it kind of represents these 7 groups that are coming soon. And the sun was going down. So we've got a clear marker. Again, I don't understand all the things that these authors are doing, but they want you to see that these two parts are together. I love these visual designs that Bible Project makes. And there was gloomy darkness. And look, a furnace of smoke and fierce flame that was passing between the pieces. And so only Yahweh goes down the aisle, right? So Yahweh is represented here by smoke and flame. And so this is the exact image by which they're going to be led through the wilderness. It was smoke by day and fire by night, right? And so Yahweh himself passes through the pieces. That's probably good for Avram because he's about to do something terrible. And if Avram had passed down the pieces with Yahweh, then his fate would have been like the animals who were halved in two. I don't want to see Abram cut in two. So very merciful that God did not allow Abram to take this like covenant with him, right? Abram's not ready. And so on that day, Yahweh cut a covenant with Abram, saying, "To your seed I give this land." That's a repeat of chapter, I think it's 12:7. He'd already made this promise, right? And he's going to expand upon it with some more details now. From the river of Egypt to the great river Euphrates, along with the Canaanite and the Kenite and the, I can't say this word, Hittite, Perizzite, and the Rephaim, and the Amorite and the Canaanite and the Girgashite and the Jebusite. So a big list. I forget what this one counts, but they always, whenever you see a list, just count it, right? And the Jebusite is last. That one is Jerusalem. So that's the Jebusites are living in Jerusalem. So pretty clear. God is doubling down on Abraham yet again. This is the fourth really significant thing that he said, and it's a whole chapter worth, right? And we're going to get another whole chapter in 17. So to be honest, you kind of expect that everything is good here. Abraham trusted God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. God has promised seed. And then the one little thing that you should note is that God's timing is significant. So they're going to be in Egypt for 400 years, and there's a reason for the timing. And so patience for God's timing is an important thing, right? All right, moving forwards to the middle. So the middle, if we were thinking about the big theme, we just had the breath of Abram this time, blowing away the chaos of birds. And so the next thing that we're expecting in our grander melody is a tree moment, right? So we're going to see some taking what's good in your eyes, and it's going to lead to problems. And then after that, we're going to expect to see two brothers fighting, and then they're going to be separated. The little twist this time is the two brothers fighting is going to be the two wives fighting. So it's going to be a little twist in how the themes come together. But again, we're working these stories at so many levels, right? So we're at a chiastic center of a chiastic center, and we're following a melody, and we've got keywords. It's so fun to read these text for years, right? All right, so chapter 16, verse 1. Now Sarai, the wife of Abram, had not given birth for him, yet we know, but she had a slave girl, an Egyptian one, and her name was Hagar. People debate about Hagar, but the most common one is that her name literally just means the immigrant, which makes you wonder if they even spoke the same language as Hagar, if they could really communicate with her thoroughly. But she's just called the immigrant, right? Which that's kind of crazy. So she hadn't given birth, a lot of foreshadowing here, but she had a slave girl. All right. So how are we going to solve this problem that God's promised to us in our own eyes, right? So pretty clear there. And so Sarai said to Abram, "Look, please, Yahweh has restrained me from giving birth. Please go into my slave girl. Perhaps I can be built up by means of her." So at this time period, one of a woman's most desirable things is to build a family, right? So to build a house, and so Sarai is looking for how she can be built up, and how is she going to solve this problem that Yahweh has promised instead of waiting for Yahweh. Not good. And building up is a connection to Cain building a city, Nimrod building Babylon, not not a good sign. The inverse would be God building an Azer, right? And so this is on the no good side, right? And Sarai, the wife of Abram, took Hagar, her Egyptian slave girl. And then it interjects this line here. At the end of 20 years of Abram dwelling in the land of Canaan, they love numbers, and so I'm sure that you could figure out a lot there, but I don't get a lot out of it personally. And she gave, just like Eve gave the apple, to Abram, her husband, as a wife. And so she is a wife now. So Abram now has two wives, and there's only one person that your head goes to. Abram's now Lamech, right? So we are... Again, Abram in the last story, he was the snake the last time this happened, and now Abram is Lamech. And so God's chosen one regularly plays these inverse roles, which is just really interesting of how complex real humans are, right? And so he went into Hagar and she became pregnant. Some people give Abram a free pass on this because he's just doing what his wife said, but Hagar is not choosing this, right? And so Abram is having a lot of sex, right, with presumably a younger, probably very beautiful girl, right? And it's no good. And so this is kind of the worst thing that Sarai and Abram do, but it shows the level that they'll go to have seed, right? Which then God is going to be forced to put Abram to a test about what they'll do to have seed. So the story that's coming at the end of this is the binding of Isaac, right? And you only understand that story if you've walked up to the mountain. And this story is one of the most informative. And so this shows what they'll do instead of following God's plan to build themselves up. And so the test that God's going to have to give them matches who they are and what they've got to work with. All right, so moving on. So we've just had our tree moment, which is no good. The next thing we're looking for in the melody is Cain killing Abel, Ham doing something terrible in the tent, or the last story, it was when they had too much wealth. But at any rate, we're looking for brothers dividing is what's happening next, and it's going to happen with the wives instead. And she saw, presumably this is Hagar, she saw that she was pregnant. And her mistress, this word here for mistress is hysterical, by the way. It's the female version of Givarim, which means that Sarai is now the Nephilim in this story. So we actually have a repeat of the Nephilim here as well. So she sees her mistress as a Givarim female, right? And she became cursed in her eyes. Literally, it says that she became light. So to be heavy, to have great kavod is one thing, but she became very not worthy, like cursed in her eyes is a good translation. But it really means that she became very not heavy, very light, very disrespectful. She's nothing now, right? This is interesting, because Yahweh promised, if you remember, in chapter 12, that whoever, those who curse you, I will curse. So Yahweh is kind of in a little bit of a bind here. You would think he would have to curse Hagar, but he does not, right? He shows mercy to Hagar. And Sarai said to Abram, "May the violence done to me be upon you." And so this reminds me of the blame game, right? So the blame game of the snake made me do it. Or Adam says, the woman you put here, she made me do it. And so when bad things happen, the next thing we do is the blame game. And we see that melody come right back. I gave my slave girl into your lap. I did nothing wrong. And she saw that she became pregnant, and I became cursed in her eyes. May Yahweh bring justice between me and between you. This is not going well, right? And so, is Abram going to take responsibility for this problem? And Abram said to Sarai, "Look, your slave girl is in your hand. Do to her what is good in your eyes." There's not even an analogy here. He literally just says the words, "do what's good in your eyes," right? And so Sarai oppressed Hagar. That's what's good in her eyes, right? And then Hagar fled. So she runs away. And she fled from before her face. So she fled from Sarai. Hard to not have your heart go out to Hagar here. I mean, she's been raped. She became pregnant. She admittedly treated Sarai as though she was worthy of disrespect. Hard to fault that, right? And she was being oppressed, and she ran away, right? And so again, God finds himself in a position, what's a God to do, right? So we've got a girl who's running away, pregnant. She's presumably running back to Egypt, which is where these locations are going to be. The problem, though, with culture, what is her Egyptian father going to say when she gets there, right? So she was given for this purpose, right? Like so that Abraham could have seed by her. And then she's going to run back to her dad and say, I got pregnant and now I've run away. It is going to go really bad for her in Egypt, right? And so God has to choose between some really bad options is where Yahweh finds himself. And it's really interesting that like chapters 1 through 11 were all ideal. And then now with this Abraham story, God is just right in the middle of our mess, right? And so the messenger of Yahweh, so is this Yahweh, is this not Yahweh? It was a messenger. We usually translate it as angel. But the messenger of Yahweh found her. Where did he find her? At water, right? A spring of waters in the wilderness. At a spring on the way to Shur. So she was heading to Egypt if you got on a map and knew where these places were. And he said, this messenger, Hagar, slave girl of Sarai, where is it you come from? This reminds me of Aeha in the garden. It's like, where are you? And to where are you going? And she said, from before the face of Sarai, my mistress, I am fleeing. So very direct, very honest, good answer, right? And so the messenger of Yahweh, the angel of Yahweh is also another translation here, said to her, by the way, angel is what we usually translate it as. An angel, we think of just spiritual being, but really the word here, it's from Greek angelos. It just means messenger. So I like how they translated messenger here. The messenger says, return to your mistress. Oh, okay. So going to make everything good. And oppress yourself under her hand. This is not a good option, right? And so you really want Yahweh to say, just go back to Egypt, right? I'm going to change the heart of your father. I'm going to make the people there welcome you. But God doesn't just blow away people and who they are, right? He simply has to work with who people are. And somehow God's sovereignty will reign through. But he does tell her to go back and be oppressed. Which the future people who are oppressed in Egypt or the future people who are addressed in Babylon, they would have related to this, right? There's going to be some time where you're going to be oppressed, and we relate to it. There's going to be some time where you're alive and it's hard, right? So that's the best option we got here. And so the messenger of Yahweh said to her, so some promising news, multiplying I will multiply your seed, so it cannot be counted because of its multiplication. So in the same way that God blessed Abram, he's going to help multiply Hagar's family, which is really neat. By the way, you'll also notice that the messenger of Yahweh is really just still talking all these times, but they're divided by this repetition of this phrase, and the messenger of Yahweh said to her, so that you can kind of compare these things and see how each plant is different from the other one. Look, you are pregnant and will give birth to a son, and you will call his name Ishmael. Ishmael means El will hear. So God, Elohim, will hear this boy, right? And so later Yahweh will see, and here Yahweh will hear. Because Yahweh has heard your oppression. And so that's great. Yahweh is going to have this kid Ishmael, and he's going to hear him. So presumably this Ishmael is going to be a good guy, right? Not actually. And as for him, he will be a donkey of a human. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand will be against him. And against the face of all his brothers will he reside. So really talking about the future of what you're going to read in the Hebrew Bible. And again, in our time, most of the Muslim nation looks to Ishmael as the forefather, right? And also Abram. And so it's interesting that God is going to multiply, even though he sees that there's going to be problems. And so the character of Yahweh, like understanding God, whatever it is, it's complex, right? And so we like to make things really simple in like American Christianity, but there's actually a much greater complexity and richness that we can come through trying to understand these texts. I don't understand it all, but I see the complexity, right? All right. And she called the name of Yahweh who spoke to her. And so it's also interesting that like she was talking to the messenger of Yahweh, but now she called on Yahweh himself, and said, "You are El Roi, El who sees me." So it's a connection to will hear me and will see me. So God is a very personal God as well. Like you can see whatever you want to see here, but God is directly involved in our daily lives, right? So there's a lot of like Epicurean and Stoic philosophy that they'll talk about in Acts, right? Of like gods that are far off, but God is very, very personal, right? This chapter is amazing, by the way. Because she said, "Have I also seen here the back of the one who sees me?" And so that'll come up a lot again in Moses seeing the back of Yahweh. Therefore, she called the well Bir Lahairoi, the well of the living one who sees me. And all these places are going to come back. And so you've got to keep track of the fact that this is where Hagar had this discussion. And so when you see Ber Lahairoi again, this story should pop up into your head. And we get a description. Look, it's between Kadesh and between Bered. Honestly, I forget where this well comes back up. I think it's where Isaac meets Rivka, but we'll be on the lookout for it, right? All right. And Hagar gave birth to a son for Abram. And Abram called the name of his son, the one whom Hagar had birthed, Ishmael. And now Abram was a son himself of 86 years. So we get a timestamp on Abram. So that's kind of interesting. He was a son of 86 years when Hagar birthed Ishmael. By the way, there's a lot of like questions about like at the end of 20 years of Abram dwelling in the land of Canaan, shouldn't he be 95? And so here he was 86. And so there's some weird things going on with the time here that I haven't like fully unpacked. All right, so Abram and Sarai did something terrible. They had their tree moment. They failed their tree moment. And then the next generation caused division. It was the two wives were divided. But interestingly, this time, Yahweh reunites the wives, which that's cool, right? So it's kind of a neat little short circuit to the problems that we normally see coming. And instead, what's going to happen, instead of like a global cataclysmic flood, there's going to be a one-person flood on Abram, and he's going to cut off all flesh and circumcision with our chapter 17. All right, I'll try to just read this one. Chapter 17, this is Abram talking with Yahweh again after doing something terrible. It's an entire chapter conversation between Yahweh and Abram, so we learn a lot about how Yahweh goes on a journey with Abram, right? And so now Abram is 99 years old, so 13 years have passed, so Ishmael is now 13. And Yahweh became seen to Abram, and he said to him, "I am El Shaddai." So one of the other names for God. It's a little bit more like war commander connotations to it, right? Walk before my face and be blameless. When described as El Shaddai and given a command like this, it's a little bit more like mom's really mad, like yelling at you, right? And then I will give a covenant between me and between you, and I will multiply you very much. And so a little bit of anger, just to be honest, at Abram, but also another doubling down on this guy, right? What did Abram do to deserve this? I mean, about the only thing Abram did to deserve this was back in like 12:6, where he trusted God, right? And so Abram fell down upon his face. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? So, and Elohim spoke to him, saying, "As for me," this is kind of like when Yahweh was talking to Noah, he said, "What you need to do," and then it's like, "What I'm going to do. As for me, look, my covenant is with you, and you will become a father of multitude of nations." Like, that's going to happen, right? And from this point forward, you're going to change the way you do things, right? Like, you are gonna, right? And no longer will you be called Abram, but you will be called Avraham. So it's like father of nations, and then like great father of nations. I forget the exact translations, but I mean, the point is that this is going to happen. It's God's will, and it's going to happen because Abram's going to do it, which is an interesting little two things you have to keep in tension. Because I will give you a multitude of nations, and I will make you fruitful very, very much. And I will give you to become nations, and kings will come from you. Lots of people see this as talking about David, right? So I will give you kings, right? And so when the people ask for a king, that's them taking a king, so that's Saul. And then there's Yahweh giving a king, that's David. So kings will come from you, and I will establish my covenant between me and between you and between your seed after you for their generations as an eternal covenant. So this affects us as well. We're seed and eternal, we're still in it, right? To be Elohim for you and for your seed after you, and I will give to you and to your seed after you the land of your sojourning. So we're going to get, some people think it is like the promised land, but today we see it more as like the cosmos, the earth, and all the land of Canaan for an eternal possession, and I will be Elohim for them. And Elohim said to Abram, wasn't he just talking? Like, why do we need this division? Again, it's the trick that they use to show you how to divide these things. As for you, this is kind of like Noah, you're going to build an ark, right? As for you, you will keep my covenant, you and your seed after you for their generations. This is my covenant that y'all will keep between me and between y'all and between your seed after you. Circumcise for yourselves every male. And so circumcision is a sign of the covenant. It'll say that directly. And if you think about what Abram just did, how is this sign connected to the last chapter? It's sexually controlling yourselves. And so this is picked up in Acts, by the way. Whenever the question of circumcisions comes to James and the people of Jerusalem, of do Gentiles need to be circumcised or not, what they'll respond is, and it's also about eating meat too, which is the other covenant that he had with Noah. What they'll respond is you need to avoid sexual immorality. So you don't actually need to be circumcised. This is just kind of like a sign of the covenant. But you do need to control yourself sexually. So it's just kind of interesting. So circumcision became a badge of honor for their culture. But really it came about because of a negative, right? So it became about because there was a problem that needed to be resolved, right? So it's really neat how well Acts knows these scriptures because we had this covenant of the rainbow, which talked about not drinking the blood of animals because their life doesn't belong to you. And then here we've got the covenant with circumcision as a sign. And then Acts, just if you go read Acts 15, it just totally picks up on these themes, and the people who drove the mission really knew their scriptures well. All right, I'll just read it. And y'all will circumcise the flesh of your foreskin. So it's very much a physical act, but that will be as a symbol. So it's just a symbol of the covenant, right? Between me and between y'all. When there's a son of 8 days, he will be circumcised for you, every male for your generations, one born of your house or purchased with silver. So it's not just going to be 8-year-old babies. It's going to be some adult males as well. From any son of a foreigner who is not from your seed, he will certainly be circumcised, the one born of your house or purchased with silver. So a lot of repetition here, just to show the certainty. And my covenant will be in your flesh for an eternal covenant. And a foreskin male that is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that person will be cut off from my people. He has violated my covenant. It's so interesting how clear this verse is, right? I mean, it's very clear. And so you can see why it was very difficult for Jewish men to accept Gentiles and allow them to be in a covenant without circumcision. And this is a big thing that Paul is fighting. So Paul read this as well. Paul knew his scriptures, right? And he understood the underlying principles of it, right? It's kind of like how Jesus looked at all the laws and said, they're really all about loving your neighbor and loving God, right? That's really what they're all about. And they were able to move forwards and say, no, you don't need to be circumcised. You just need to believe in Jesus. And so it's just really interesting that they were able to walk a path, right, where this was the next step that was needed for them to do it quite literally, but it actually just pointed to the bigger picture, which Jesus was so able to do, and Paul as well. All right, let's finish this chapter. And Elohim said to Abram, as for Sarai, your wife, you will not call her Sarai, because her name is Sarah. So again, it's a similar style promotion. And I will bless her, and also I will give to you from her a son, and I will bless her, and she will become nations. Kings of people, groups will be from her. And Abram fell on his face, and he laughed. He yitzhaked. It's the name Isaac. So laughter represents disbelief. And so he, yitzhak, he laughed, and he said to his heart, if you think back to like the Noah story, God talked to his heart all the time, will there be birth for a son of 100 years? So he himself was going to be 100 by then. Or Sarah, a daughter of 90 years? First time we learn her age, by the way. She's exactly 10 years younger. She will give birth? And Abram said to Elohim, so he's trying to solve the problem his way, right? If only Ishmael could live before your faith. So he trusted before, but he's not really trusting so well now. And Elohim said, no. Nonetheless, Sarah, your wife, will birth for you a son, and you will call his name Yitzhak. Laughter, because you didn't believe me, right? Sarah's going to do the same thing here in a little bit. And I will establish my covenant with him. So it's going to keep moving forward. The blessing is going to keep moving forwards. People look at the blessing in different ways, but to me, it's kind of like the line that Jesus is going to be in, right? So it's going to go through Yitzhak for an eternal covenant and for his seed after him. So the snake crusher is going to be one of his descendants, right? And as for Ishmael, so their first son, I have heard you. Look, I've blessed him. I will make him fruitful. I will make him multiply very much. 12 princes he will cause to be born, and I will give to him a great nation. But I will establish my covenant with Yitzhak, whom Sarah will birth for you. Very clear. At the appointed time in the year after. And he finished speaking to him, and Elohim went up from Abram. And Abram took Ishmael, his son. So in the same way that after God spoke to Noah, Noah did it, here's going to be where Abraham does it, right? So he is going to choose to do, right? Which is great. Abram took Ishmael his son, and all those born in his house, and all those purchased with silver, and every male among the men of Abram's house, and he circumcised the flesh of their foreskin on that very day, just as Elohim had spoken to him. And Abram was a son of 99 years when he was circumcised. So he circumcised himself in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael, his son, a son of 13 years, he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. On that very day, Abram was circumcised, and Ishmael his son, and all the men of his house, and all those born of the house. You can see the chiastic structure. And those purchased with silver from a foreigner, they were circumcised with him. You could probably have summarized that in like 5 words, but the way the Bible does things that are important is it uses repetition as an effective means of communication. Check. All right, this was the end of a very big chunk. I suggest you take a break. When we come back, we're going to start learning about Lot. See you then.